Imagine walking onto the tarmac, your heart racing with excitement as your dream of flying on a private jet is just moments away. But suddenly, you're stopped, not by protocol, but by prejudice. In today's story, a wealthy black woman faces an unexpected roadblock when a security guard, blinded by his own biases, assumes she doesn't belong. He coldly denies her access to the luxurious jet, determined to prove she's in the wrong place. What happens next will leave you speechless. As tempers rise and tension thickens, bystanders watch in uncomfortable silence. The woman, calm but firm, presents her credentials, but even that doesn't convince him. His assumptions cloud his judgment. But here's the twist. Her true identity is far more powerful than anyone could have imagined. Who is she really? Why would someone of her status be treated this way? And how will this encounter end? This isn't just a story about a private jet or a simple misunderstanding. It's a reflection of the harsh realities many face, a moment where power, privilege, and prejudice collide. Stay with us as we uncover the truth behind this shocking scene, reveal the woman's remarkable background, and explore the powerful lesson this encounter holds for all of us. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. The guard's eyes narrowed as he blocked her path, his stance rigid with authority. "This area is restricted," he snapped, his tone sharp and dismissive. He glanced at her designer luggage, then back at her. "Passengers like *U*, don't fly on jets like *these*. The woman raised an eyebrow, calm but composed. "Excuse me," she asked, her voice steady and confident. "I'm supposed to be on this flight." She held out her boarding confirmation, but he barely glanced at it, shaking his head as if he already knew it couldn't be real. The tension in the air was palpable. Other staff nearby watched the confrontation unfold, but stayed silent. No one dared to intervene. The guard crossed his arms, standing his ground. "Look," he scoffed, "I don't care what you have. This jet is reserved for VIPs, executives, celebrities, people who belong here. You need to step away before I call security." The woman's eyes never wavered. There was no anger, no raised voice, just an unwavering sense of calm that hinted at something far deeper. "Are you sure about that?" she asked quietly, a small smile playing at the corners of her lips. Her confidence made him falter for just a moment, but his prejudice wouldn't let him back down. "Positive," he muttered. She tilted her head, her expression unreadable. "You might want to check again," she said softly. But who was she? What kind of person could command such quiet authority? And what would happen when the truth finally came out? The guard's eyes flicked toward her once more, studying her expensive attire and poised demeanor. Something about her calmness unsettled him, but his ego wouldn't let him admit he might be wrong. "Look," he said, his voice growing impatient, "I've worked this job for a long time. I know when someone's trying to sneak into a place they don't belong. You need to leave, now." The woman sighed quietly, her expression still composed. She glanced at her watch, clearly aware that time was slipping by. "Is this really how you treat people?" she asked, her tone neither confrontational nor meek. "Do you assume someone's status based on how they look?" He smirked, folding his arms across his chest. "I don't make assumptions. I follow rules, and you don't fit the profile of our usual clientele." He gestured dismissively. "Private jets are for important people, CEOs, celebrities, not random people walking up from the street." Behind them, murmurs started to rise among a small group of onlookers, ground crew members, assistants, even a few passengers. Some exchanged uncomfortable glances, while others whispered quietly, sensing the brewing storm. One young flight attendant, her brows furrowed with concern, stepped forward but hesitated just short of speaking up. The power dynamic was painfully clear. The woman took a deep breath, her patience thinning. "I'm going to ask you one last time. Check the manifest. My name is on it." She locked eyes with the guard, her confidence radiating authority. Reluctantly, he pulled out a clipboard. Fine, he muttered, but what he saw next made his breath catch. The guard's eyes darted across the passenger list, his smirk fading into confusion. He scanned it again, slower this time, as if willing the words to change. His fingers hovered over a name written in bold. A name he hadn't expected. His throat tightened. The woman watched his reaction, her expression unreadable. "What does it say?" she asked, her voice calm but pointed. He hesitated, a bead of sweat forming at his temple. His hand trembled slightly as he clutched the clipboard. "This can't be right," he mumbled, his tone uncertain now. "It is right," she responded firmly. "Now, would you like to explain why you assumed I didn't belong here?" Her question hung in the air, sharp and undeniable, cutting through the silence that had fallen over the onlookers. The flight attendant, sensing the shift, took a step closer, her eyes filled with curiosity and concern. She peered over the guard's shoulder and gasped softly. She recognized the name instantly. It was tied to wealth, influence, and respect, a name synonymous with power. The guard's mind raced, his assumptions unraveling one by one. His arrogance had blinded him, and now the weight of his actions pressed heavily on his shoulders. He opened his mouth, searching for words, but none came. The woman stepped forward, her composure steady. "You judged me because of how I look," she said quietly, "but you never asked who I am." Her gaze held his, unflinching. "Do you know now?" He swallowed hard, his face pale. The truth was staring back at him, undeniable and unforgiving. The guard swallowed again, his mouth dry as he nodded slowly. "Yes, I know who you are now." His voice was barely a whisper, the confidence that once fueled his words now completely drained. He stepped back, his hand still gripping the clipboard, as if it could somehow shield him from the consequences of his actions. The woman held his gaze for a long, tense moment. Then, without a word, she turned to walk toward the jet. But just as her foot touched the first step, another voice called out sharply from behind her. "Wait." Everyone turned as a well-dressed man in a crisp suit strode across the tarmac, his face etched with panic. He wasn't part of the ground crew. He exuded authority, the kind that made people step aside without question. The guard stiffened at his approach, his eyes wide with recognition. The man reached the jet and positioned himself between the woman and the aircraft door, his expression a mix of urgency and desperation. "I'm sorry," he said, glancing quickly at the guard before focusing on her. "There's been a serious mistake." The woman's brow furrowed, her calm demeanor giving way to curiosity. "A mistake?" "Yes," he replied, his tone low but intense. "This isn't about who you are. It's about why you're here." Her eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" The man hesitated. "There's a security concern. We need to speak. Privately." She froze, the weight of his words settling over her. A chill crept down her spine as the tension deepened. The woman's eyes stayed locked on the man in the suit, her expression steady but her mind racing. "A security concern," she repeated, her tone sharp with disbelief. "You've already made enough assumptions about me today. What exactly is the issue now?" The man glanced nervously at the clipboard in the guard's hands, then back at her. "It's not about you," he said carefully. "It's about someone else." His voice dropped, almost a whisper. "There's a threat connected to this flight, one we didn't catch until moments ago." The guard, still lingering nearby, flinched. "A threat," he stammered. "What are you talking about?" Ignoring him, the man gestured for the woman to step aside, his eyes scanning the jet. "We need to search the aircraft. Please, for your safety, I need your cooperation." The woman's composure didn't break, but her heart quickened. She glanced toward the jet, then back at the man. "And what exactly do you expect to find?" He opened his mouth to respond when a sudden commotion erupted from behind them. A second guard, flushed and out of breath, ran toward the group. "We've got the wrong target," he shouted. "It's not her asterisk. It's someone posing as a staff member." Gasps rippled through the onlookers. The original guard's face went ghostly pale as the weight of his prejudice became undeniable. He had focused on the wrong person the entire time. The woman turned back to the man in the suit, her voice calm but cutting. "I guess assumptions can be dangerous," she said quietly. Then, without waiting for a response, she stepped confidently onto the jet, exactly where she belonged. The woman took her seat on the luxurious private jet, the calm hum of the engines filling the cabin as she glanced out the window. Outside, the guard stood frozen, shame and regret weighing heavily on his shoulders. He had learned a harsh lesson, one he wouldn't soon forget. As the crew secured the plane for takeoff, the man in the suit directed security to the real suspect. The threat was neutralized quickly, but the damage of misplaced judgment had already been done. Actions driven by assumptions had led to unnecessary conflict and humiliation. Moments later, the flight attendant, now visibly relieved, approached the woman with an apologetic smile. "We're honored to have you aboard, ma'am," she said softly. The woman nodded graciously. "Thank you. Hopefully next time, people will think before they judge." As the jet began to taxi down the runway, she leaned back in her seat, her confidence unshaken. She'd faced bias head-on and proven, once again, that appearances can be deceiving. The story wasn't just about her triumph, but a reminder for everyone. Respect isn't based on what someone looks like. It's a right that belongs to us all. Judgments may come quickly, but true understanding always takes time.